All right, welcome to another episode of the Scripting Then podcast. Today with us, I have a very special guest, Lucas da Costa. Please, Lucas, I'm doing a terrible show introducing you, so please introduce yourself and let our audience know who you are and what you're working on.
Sure. Thanks, Fernando. So I'm Lucas da Costa. So I'm a software engineer, have been a software engineer for most of my life. And essentially, I started as a software engineer, did a lot of open source work. Some of you who do JavaScript might know Chai.js and Sino.js. So those are two libraries I've helped building. Thanks to that work, I ended up moving to London to work at an early stage startup where I ended up leading the software team there. During this time in London, I also ended up writing a book for many, which is called Testing JavaScript Applications. And after that, I also ended up working for Elastic on the observability team there. And then I started my own startup. So I left my life in London to move back to Brazil and start Briefer with my co-founder, who's also called Lucas. I'll mention him probably a few times in the podcast. So just so you know, when I mention Lucas, it's my co-founder.
You're not talking,
And
speaking in a third person then. Good
yeah,
to know.
exactly.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so we founded Briefer. We were in the YCS23 batch, and we're now building a lot of software. And here I'm the founder and CEO, but do a lot of coding, a lot of product, which is the job of a founder. So
Yeah.
that's it.
Awesome, amazing, and it's a interesting topic. That the whole journey you've been through, essentially going from building some, or working on some open source libraries, then working for some startups, and then finally creating your own and building your product. So that's kind of what we're going to be talking today about. So let's start with the why. What got you into building your own software? What were you missing, or what was your inspiration to that got
Mhm.
you from I have a job, I work for others, and now I want to build my own thing and be
Mhm.
my own boss?
Yeah. So I think quite a few things. So I've always wanted to have my own startup and build my own stuff. Since I was a kid, I was really creative when it came to software and all related things. Differently from other kids that were playing games, I was like writing code to play the games and figuring out what I could do that's more interesting than just like writing the usual code for others or doing the usual things. So I've always kind of had that in me. And I've always talked about that with my co-founder since college. We've known each other for like more than 10 years by now. And we always, did everything together. We always tried to work together whenever we could. And I think that the combination of me having this will to build my own stuff, plus being able to work with the best person in the world that I could work with, I think that's the two main things for me. Just working with my co-founder every day, it makes me so happy, and being able to choose whatever I'm going to build, that's also priceless, because then I'm always doing things that feel interesting to me. I understand the whole context. Sometimes when you do code, you're like a bit far away, and
True.
especially larger companies from users. And when you kind of like have this holistic view of who you're serving, which types of problems you're solving, and you try to figure out creative ways to solve those problems and play with all these constraints, that's really mentally stimulating for me. So I kind of love the mental challenge of doing. So I think it's the combination of these three things.
Amazing. Yeah, yeah, I can see that. I can see the beauty and the freedom that you mentioned, of being able to work on exactly what you want, and having that extra context that you're so
Mm.
right. I mean, as developers, we're not always aware of what we're building and who we're building it for, or what impact does
Mm.
our the product that we're working on has. But it can be that easy. I mean, otherwise everyone will be doing it. So why don't we run through some of the challenges that you've encountered through this process
Yeah.
of migrating into this new career path?
Yeah. I think the first thing I'd like to talk about is what you mentioned about being your own boss. So even though you can pick the problem that you find interesting, and you have the freedom to design a solution. uh, you are your own boss, but really the product and the problems, they are your bosses, because you have customers you have to serve, you have all these problems that you have to deal with. So at the end of the day, you are your own boss, in the sense that, like, you employ yourself, but you're really trying to serve the world. You're trying to build this thing for others. So it's the world, it's making something people want, who's really your boss. So you end up working a lot more because of that.
Yeah.
Because when there's a problem, it's like your responsibility to solve it. Like it always is when you have a problem in your program. But like in this case, even if you hire someone, at the end of the day, you're the founder. It's your problem,
Right.
and you have to be deeply involved in these things. Um, so I think that's the first thing that you have to be aware of. I love doing it, so it's not a problem for me. But like, you need to be really sure that this is the path you want to go towards, because there's a lot of work. And people always say that being a founder is difficult, starting a company is difficult. And I think that everyone that starts a company, they know that, but they haven't felt it yet.
Right.
And when it's yourself, that's when you really understand how difficult things are. But the reward that you get for solving these difficult problems, they're also way greater.
Right.
So to mention a few things, as an engineer, you rarely have to do sales. As a founder, it's your job to do sales.
Right.
And you may think, oh, I can hire someone to do sales. Well, then you're not really there in the field, learning from your customers firsthand. Trying to handle the objections and learning how you can be better prepared in terms of product and everything else, so you can handle that and serve your customers in a best way. So it requires a lot more lateral thinking and a lot more creativity to deal with these things. So there's a lot more constraints and a lot more things that you have to consider. So it's difficult in that sense. I'd say it's a lot more than just sitting down and writing the code that solves a problem.
Right.
Sometimes not writing the code is the thing that actually solves the problem. Sometimes it's just changing something else, maybe your pricing model, maybe your ICP, something else really.
True. True. So would you say that other than, or rather, the tech skills are the least important thing here when you're trying to become your own, a founder, your own boss, or when you're trying to build your own product? It's all the everything else that you have to do extra that you're not used to as a developer. Those are the things that really matter. Would you say that?
I wouldn't say that. I think that building is a really important skill. I'm a builder, and my co-founder is a builder as well. We're both technical founders, and because we can build, that's a huge advantage. We
Right.
ship a lot of software, and we ship it really fast. Like,
Right.
I've never seen someone ship as much software as we do. So I think that's really important. It gets you ahead. You can do more with less, and you're like, because you're fewer people, you have closer contact with the field, I'd say. So the feedback loop is way faster.
Right.
So I think that it is really important to have technical skills. I'd say that. But I'd say that it's also really important to learn how to do sales and how to talk to customers and how to figure out what problems people actually have, and what problems they just tell you they have. But the root problem, the root cause, is something else. So I'd say all of these things, they're important, and it's good to have some balance, when dealing with them, because Michael and I were both technical, but I'm more used to kind of like speaking conferences and like talking to customers and that kind of stuff. We both do it, but we have our strong suits. My
Right.
co-founder is like the best technical person I've ever met, and I think I'm pretty good technically, but he leads that
Right.
part, although we both code, and vice versa. He also talks to customers. I just happen to have the final word when it comes to that. So I'd say all of those skills are important, which is why this can be so difficult at times.
Yeah. 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 It's not. It's definitely not for everyone. Um, Now, one thing that I think that as any developer, we've all at least played with the idea of just doing this exactly what you're doing. Uh, Not everyone is as brave as you guys, but um, one thing that I've always kind of blocked me essentially is, how do I know what to build, or what kind of niche to focus on, or what kind of product to build. How did you come up with the idea? How did you come up
Mhm.
with, or not come up, but how did you find this need that you're solving through your product?
So I think that for you to, I think first you should work on something that you like and something that you understand. So my co-founder and I were building a technical product for technical people, and we understand, the area we're in, so we can make better decisions and we can make better assumptions.
That makes sense.
Now, that said, you also have to talk to customers a lot. Talk to users, talk to potential customers, talk to, people in similar adjacent areas so that you can get this feedback from the world. But ultimately, you never quite find it. You're always increasing this intersection between what the market wants and what your product does. You're always increasing the surface area of product market fit. So you have to continuously be searching for that. Your idea is in constant evolution, always. Maybe it's not just the product. Like when I say the idea, I mean the idea, the acquisition channel, the pricing model. I mean like
Everything,
everything, because
yeah.
everything is part of the idea. Everything is within this
Right.
problem
It's
set.
not just the product, it's everything around it as well.
Correct. You can have the best product in the world, but like if you cannot reliably get customers and if you have a pricing model that doesn't make sense,
Yeah.
well then it doesn't make sense. But at the earliest stages, finding that initial product market fit, that's when you really have to put a lot of effort into talking to customers, see how they behave, and try to figure out what is it that's like really true in your assumptions. And I think that the best way to do that is ship software really quickly. Because if you can ship software really quickly, you can have lots of shots on target. I like to think of it as like trying to find a path on the road, but you're not seeing. You're not able to look ahead.
All
You
right.
can only walk in a direction that you think is correct, and then when you hit a wall, you adjust and you keep going. That's how I think about it. So I think that's the way of finding it. So I think that's how I go about trying to make sure we're building something that people want.
Right. All right. And what about the step before that? What about trying to spot opportunities to build a product? What kind of advice would you have for a dev
Mhm,
that it just they want to build a product, they just don't know what to build?
mhm.
How would you go
I'd
about
say
trying to
mhm.
find opportunities there?
I'd say get started. The best way of finding a problem is getting started and talking to people and shipping software. I think that if you just live in this ideal world, you will have good ideas and you will have bad ideas, but you don't know which ones are which. So you have to do something and ship it and put it in front of people. And I personally think that it's more difficult when you're doing something part time because you don't have this time to be immersed in the
True.
problem and
Hmm.
continuously ship things. So I'd say get started, talk to people, and ship things to those people depending on what they say, what are the problems. So my co-founder and I, for example, we always had this approach of founder market fit. What market fits us as founder. Founders, where are our strengths and how we can better use that to solve a particular problem. You know, so I'd say get started, choose an area that you understand, talk to people, detect those problems, and ship software. If you just live in the ideal world and you just talk to people, you will never know.
Right. Right. Okay. And you keep saying build software, get started, and ship fast. What would you say is the right amount of time to spend building before shipping? Essentially, like should I build for 3 months and then just ship and see what people think about it, or should I build for a week,
Mm-hmm.
a weekend? What is the
Mm-hmm.
the speed at which you would advise people to build and ship and get feedback and go into that cycle?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's a great question, and I don't think there's one right answer to it. So I'll give the easier answer and say it depends. Lots of people will say you have to ship as fast as possible. Just like ship something that you do yourself manually and everything. I think that that's totally valid, but it doesn't work for every single product. And I think that there's a theory I have. I might be wrong here, is that in 2023 people have, they tolerate, they have a lower threshold to tolerate bad products, you know. So I think that in these days it might be wise to spend a little bit more time building. There's no right answer to this.
Mhm.
For some products, if you're building a crude app, yeah, maybe like a week is enough, or maybe like even 2 weeks. Like it really depends on what you're building.
Right.
Because if you're just building a simple crude app, sure, like a week or two might be, might be what you need. If you're doing something that could be a concierge kind of like MVP, sure, that's totally fine. But if you're just like building pure SaaS, for software engineers, like a library or something, in infra or anything like that, it's a space I know more deeply. Like I'd say that needs a little bit more refinement. And there's really no right answer. There's a lot of gut feeling in this, and something I've heard a lot, and I think that it becomes more and more true as we go, is like you develop this conviction and you kind of like get better at making these bets, but you have to place the bets.
Right.
And if you can place the bets quickly enough and you can learn as you go, even if you're not necessarily like putting the product out there, maybe like pick one or two people and ship gradually. But the important thing is like you need to ship. There's no right answer for like when to go public or not. There's a bunch of variables there,
Mhm.
so I don't think there's a right answer. But yeah, I'm sorry I cannot give a more precise answer, but
No, no.
that's
I
what
mean,
makes it so difficult. Yeah,
it's totally valid. I mean, that's your experience, so that's great.
yeah. But
Um,
it's better to be early. It's better to be early. That I'll say.
okay, okay, that's interesting. So you would, in that case, if there is no other solution like yours, you would sacrifice quality to get it out sooner.
I wouldn't say I would sacrifice quality. I'd say I'd cut scope. Like cutting scope is magic. You would be amazed at how much scope you can cut, and people will never ask for that, and
Right,
you have saved yourself a lot of time.
right.
There were like a few things that I thought were like absolutely necessary for our users, and people didn't use that, and I could have spent that time to build more valuable things.
Mhm.
So you will make these mistakes, it's inevitable, but like the good thing is I ship these things pretty quickly, so it's not that expensive for me to make that mistake, and I get better as we go. Like right now I think we're shipping a lot of valuable stuff, and everything that we've been shipping recently people have been using. So you get better at this, you get better at figuring these things out.
That's fair. All right. Awesome. And going back to launching and building fast and shipping, what kind of impact would you say marketing has on the success of a product? And as a developer, how good are we at marketing? What would you say?
Mhm. I think it depends on the type of product that you have. Some products are best suited for direct sales channels. Some products, it's just better if you just go to the decision makers and you like run a normal sales process with them. So for some products, marketing is not that useful, at least in the beginning. Like it always is necessary. Some kind of marketing is always necessary, even if it's just marketing yourself or your solution directly in front of the customer. So it depends a lot on your product. But if you're going the PLG route, it's paramount. There's no way you can go the PLG route and not have a reliable way to acquire customers in a way that's scalable, either through word of mouth or like social media or anything like that. And there's great developers that can also do marketing, and I think that's a really really strong advantage. If you look at Resend, for example, by Zena, who's a guy I really admire, he's amazing at developer marketing, and he's being absolutely crushing it because he's just so good at Twitter. He's just so good at putting stuff out there for people to see, and he knows what resonates with people. So if that's the kind of product that you have, that's the kind of acquisition loop that you want to run, it is really important. And many developers are great at that. Zeno's great at that. Cassidy, Guillermo from Brussels. Like there's lots of developers that are really good at that.
But what was your experience with that?
So we've only launched really recently. I think our first public launch was last Thursday.
All
So
right.
essentially, that was the first time we put the new product out there, and it worked great. It worked great. So we launched Briefer on Twitter on the morning of last Thursday, and we had 500 signups by now since then. And it's only been like a week, so it's been really amazing to see everything happening so fast. And I think it's not only because we're good at marketing. I think that's part of it, knowing how to write a good tweet and put some videos and like write a thread that's engaging and that makes people want to share it. That's sure, there's a lot of that in there. But at the end of the day, if you're not solving a real pain and if your product, is not shown in the right way, that won't happen. So it's a combination of you making something people want and then showing people that it does what they want it to do. Um, so I think it's both, and consistency is always really necessary. So I'd say that if you're consistent, you'll be consistently learning, and if you're solving a real pain and you're able to show that to people, people will figure it out. You just need to keep going, keep shipping things, and putting it out there.
You make it sound so easy, but showing that your product does what people want it to do is a lot harder than it sounds, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. I personally find that the best advice is usually really simple to understand and really difficult to follow. When people say, "Oh, I want to get healthy," everyone knows what they need to do. They need to
True.
go to the gym and eat healthy stuff. It's super simple.
Yeah.
And everyone just says that and they're like, "Oh, you make it sound so easy," but like it is easy to understand and difficult to follow. Like waking up every single day of your life and putting in all those hours of work and talking to users and being consistent at shipping, it is difficult, but it's simple.
Yeah.
And it requires a lot of good feeling. And there's lots of like one-off situations that you need to kind of like learn and like create these mental models and these patterns to deal with.
Nice. I like that. All right. Now, you're a team of two. We're talking about developers, probably maybe even going solo here. What would you say is the right approach at scaling when you're so few, when you don't have the tools or the money even to create a huge environment, a huge company around
Mm,
you to build more and ship more?
mm,
What would be your advice there?
mm. Yeah, so I think in our case, we're very fortunate to have, Y-Combinator in our side and some amazing angels that invested. So I think that's been absolutely amazing. And I think that the fact that we're true allows us to cut out a lot of noise, actually. So I think that, at the size we're in, it doesn't really hinder our ability to ship what we need to ship at this stage because we're figuring lots of things out. And sometimes going slowly in the right direction is better than going really fast in the wrong direction. I think Charlie Munger says that, it's better to be partially correct than exactly wrong. And that's the approach that I'm taking here. Another thing I'd say is that, like, yeah, we're two physically, but my co-founder's worth like 50 programmers.
Right.
So that helps a lot as well. Um, and if you're talking to customers and you can ship software as fast as we can, I'd say that's the number one thing. And because you're so few, you're able to focus on the things that really really matter and cut out all the noise and all the things that lots of people would spend a lot of time on just because they have the resources but are not necessarily the right thing to spend time on. We're a team of two, and we shipped lots of stuff that people, need teams to ship. So I think it definitely hasn't, hindered our ability to make something people want for now. And we're always trying to make something that people want more. You're always in the path, as I mentioned. Things
Yeah.
they evolve as you go. But I don't think it's been a problem for us. If anything, I think it's made it easier for us to iterate because there's the feedback loop is faster. I don't need to align with like 10 other stakeholders. I don't need to, do a bunch of other things that I would have to do if I had a huge company. Now, you have to grow, sure, but like WhatsApp is what, like 49 people right now,
I don't know.
and they serve all of Brazil. Like you cannot do anything here without WhatsApp, and they're like
Yeah.
I think they're 49 or something. Um, but but yeah, I think it depends on each case. There's no right answer to this. I'll figure it out as we go, and as we grow, I'll tell you. I'll be back here to tell you.
I like that. I like that. And I like that you say that fewer people, it's easier to go to move faster now. Um, Granted, you're amazing coders. That's fantastic. But to go as fast as you go, do you see yourself cutting corners, or do you
Mm,
follow strictly? the same workflows that you did back when you
Mm-hmm.
were at Elastic, for
Mm-hmm.
example, or bigger
Mm-hmm.
companies? How is
Mm-hmm.
that work environment, essentially a workflow for
Mm-hmm.
a developer compared to between both
Mm-hmm.
worlds?
Yeah, we never cut corners. We always cut scope.
All right.
You never cut on quality or anything related to that. Like you can always cut scope. Like there's always these details on features that you don't really need. Like, oh, does this need to be a drop down with like five options, or could it just be a toggle? It's always
Right.
these like small things that save a lot of effort as you do that. And if you talk to people and you see how they use your product and you keep an eye on the metrics and all that, you can make better decisions on what's the next thing to build. You see which things that people are asking for, you see what walls they're hitting, and then you ship exactly that. The process is a lot more lightweight though. I'm a huge process geek. I've studied all the books that you can think of about Scrum and statistical process management and all those kinds of stuff. I read Demon's musings when he went to Japan to study their manufacturing system. I did all of that.
All right.
So I think I'm good at designing processes that are lightweight, but they are like repeatable and improvable.
Hmm.
So we have a really lightweight process. We use a small Kanban board. I don't believe in Scrum. I love Kanban. Kanban is the way to go. So we have a small Kanban board, and we also have this thing that I invented, I think, because I never heard of someone doing this. It's called the road tree. It's a roadmap that's formatted as a tree. So I hate Gantt charts because they're just like fiction. Those timelines,
Yeah, yeah.
you can never
They never
play
happen.
anything on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like all these things are stochastic. You cannot plan based on time. So we have this road tree in which we map, a feature on the top, and then there's like these nodes on the bottom. It's just like a tree, a normal tree. And as you go down the tree, there are three colors that you can use for each item that you put in it. So imagine you're, I don't know, trying to ship a feature for this podcast recording software that we're using right now.
Right.
So you have, the chat feature. So, you have chat up there, that's a root node in your tree. And
Hmm.
then below it, you have, I don't know, emojis, ability to, send messages, ability to like messages. And then like you build this tree of like what depends on what, and then use three colors: green when it's done, red when it's a must have and you don't have it, and blue when it's not necessary. So whenever you have a node in the tree on the bottom that's red, it makes everything above it not green, right?
Okay.
Because it's a
Yeah.
dependency. So you can map dependencies in a tree-like structure, because if any of the child nodes of the tree are red, everything above is red. So that's the way you prioritize. Because when you look at the tree, you immediately know how things are organized and what you need to do. So then we look at the road tree and we transfer that to the Kanban in small batches. I hate large batches. I never do large batches. If you like know how manufacturing works, you know never big batches are like really bad, and then they don't especially when you have large transaction costs, like batches get really large, and there's a bunch of these things. So look at the road tree, transfer things to Kanban daily, keep it small, keep it in like small batches so you can always adjust as you go. And then as you ship, if you see that you realize someone will not use any node of the tree, it's blue, it's not necessary, you move on to the next thing. So it's really lightweight. But we're disciplined enough to do it every day, because then each sprint we can make small improvements. And we only spend like what, like 15, 20 minutes a day maintaining this. It's like really lightweight. Sometimes we spend like 5 minutes. So it's been working really well so far.
Nice. All right. You call it road tree?
I call it road tree. Maybe I should write a blog post about that. It's basically
Yeah.
a tree of tasks, and each node is a dependency of the thing above. And depending on the stage of the node below, it propagates upwards. It's the way a programmer would think about designing a product. I can't help it. In the same way that
No, no, but I like it. I like
it's the
it.
lens you see the world.
Yeah, 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 absolutely. You definitely need to write about this because I think I will definitely use it, and many people will, many devs will. All right, awesome. All right, so we're closing on the 30-minute mark. So, what advice do you have, or would you leave for developers aspiring to become their own bosses, aspiring to build and launch their own product? What would be the number one advice?
The number one advice.
And wait, let me just. It doesn't. You can't say get started.
Okay, yeah,
You've
yeah, yeah.
said it. You've said it
I
already.
thought about it, but
Yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Um, I'd say that you have to have a lot of will to make things happen, because being a founder is really difficult, and bad things will happen, but you have to keep going. There's this great article called "Don't Die" by Paul Graham, which I can quote here, and I think that's the best startup advice there is. So Paul Graham says here at the end, "I'll tell you, bad things are coming. They always are in a startup. The odds of getting from launch to liquidity without some kind of disaster happening are 1 in 1,000. So don't get demoralized. When disaster strikes, just say to yourself, okay, that was what Paul was talking about. What did he say? Oh yeah, don't give up." So with the words of Paul Graham, the great, that's my advice, which is taken from him.
I like it. I like it. All right, let's end in that note then. Thank you again, Lucas. It was incredible and super insightful. Please tell our audience where they can find you online, how they can reach out, and just talk about your product a little bit.
Absolutely, absolutely. So we're Briefer. So we do a mix of Jupyter notebooks with Notion-like documents. So you can go there, run some Python, plot some graphs, share with the others. No need to, download containers or anything like that. You just, go there, write some Python, share the link. That's it. And it looks really nice, and it's really fast. So I'd be absolutely honored if you go to briefer.cloud right now, sign up, and tell me what you think. I'd love to hear your feedback, and follow us on Twitter at briefercloud. And you can find me on Twitter at the Wizard Lucas. And if you want to find me on any other social networks, you can also go to lucasfcosta.com, and you will find all other relevant links there, including the link to Briefer, which I'd love if you signed up for. Thank you.
Awesome. They will definitely make sure to add all those links on the show notes, so that people can find it. All right, man. Thank you again. It was great. And to everyone listening, thank you. And I'll catch you on the next one. Bye.
Thank you, Fernando. Bye bye.
Bye. And that was it for this episode. Thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to rate the podcast in your favorite podcasting app so that it can reach more developers. In the meantime, if you'd like to follow me on Twitter, or X as people call it, just look for me at DeleteMan123. And that's it. Thank you, and catch you on the next one.